Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to talk about Game 2 of the NBA Finals, where the Oklahoma City Thunder tied the series at 1-1 with essentially a blowout victory over the Indiana Pacers. Might talk a little bit about Zach Edey's injury at the end of the show, but mostly this is going to be finals. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy? It's like 9:45 your time. We're so early today.
It is. I got excited. We had a 7 o'clock start time, and then the game wasn't super close with a bunch of timeouts at the end. And because of that, let's have a quick pop quiz from tonight's game, Sam. Who was the leading scorer in tonight's game from either team?
It was
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Who was the second leading scorer in tonight's game from either team?
I would guess it was Caruso or Wiggins. I'm not sure which one ended up with more.
Alex Caruso. Who was the third leading scorer in tonight's game?
I'd probably say Wiggins then.
It was J-Dub and then Aaron Wiggins. So before we have named a single Indiana Pacer, we have, SGA, J-Dub, that's fair. We have also named Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins before we named Tyrese Halliburton or Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, and what? They buried... I'll pull up the box while we're talking, but they buried 8 or 9 threes, something like that. They just got
9 of 16.
You got a ton of open shots.
Yeah, 9 of 16 between those two guys, between Caruso and Wiggins was awesome tonight. We'll talk about all these guys. We talk about Caruso all year long, every series, every game within a series, all of that. Wiggins was a player that I had pinpointed coming into the series where I thought he might have a bigger role. I thought he made more sense because of what you want to have defensively against this Pacers team. And he had a huge night tonight, and Dagnall, gave him more minutes. He rewarded him for his good play, and he played, it was 21 minutes tonight. So.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that, yes, those guys went 9 of 16 from 3. But the rest of the team went 5 for 20 from 3. It's not even like they got a particularly aberrant shooting night from 3 from a whole team perspective, right? So, yeah, I feel great about this if I was Thunder fan. 123-107, the Oklahoma City Thunder defeat the Indiana Pacers. And honestly, it wasn't even really that close. It probably should have been a 20-point win. The Thunder and Pacers both near the end of the game, took some guys out and really decided to rest some bodies going into game 3. Yeah, this was a beatdown. And to me, where it starts is 2 places. So first, the defense. The defense was unconscionably good in the first half. It was undeniably monstrous. They scored 41 points, the Indiana Pacers did, against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were at 29 points with 20 minutes having been played in the game. That was right as Oklahoma City, had gone on that 19-2 run, which was just a total monster. That was the epitome of what we talk about with Oklahoma City, where the avalanche moments are the key ones, right? They are so good at creating those avalanche moments where it just feels like they're skiing downhill and you're trying to, tread water and, kind of climb uphill the whole time. And, that was just such a testament to Oklahoma City's defense as much as anything. The big number here for me where, it just stands out immediately. Oklahoma City was up 26-12 in terms of paint points in the first half. That's just very difficult. It felt like the way that Oklahoma City played this game was Lou Dort was going to, by any means necessary, try to shut down Tyrese Halliburton. And B, they were really clogging up the paint. They were helping from different angles. Often I felt like a lot of the time their help does come from the corners, and let's not mistake it, like they did help off of the corner a lot tonight. And Indiana's best source of offense, I thought tonight, was probably the corner three. But they've sent different helps from different locations, depending on who was driving, the angle of the drive, the angle of the ball screen. I thought it was really sharp to keep Indiana just like a little bit out of kilter. The other thing that I think they did really well is that the Pacers really love to run those like pitchback actions, right? With Tyrese particularly, but also with Nemhard for sure. And they just had those things scouted and they blew them up repeatedly throughout the course of the night.
I'm glad you brought up the scouting. I made a note into the third quarter. Indiana ran the baseline out of bounds play that we highlighted in the Knicks series, where they brought Neesmith across through a double screen, and Neesmith hit a three like at the end of the third quarter, or it was something. I didn't have time to go back and look in my notes, but anyway. Indiana tried to run it at the end of the third quarter tonight, and OKC had it scouted out. They took it away. Indiana got nothing off of it. And it's just like, this is how these things go, right? Like you run something really good in a playoff series, and if the other team is good and does their homework, then they're going to scout it out and have it ready to take it away. And just like you're saying there with the pitchback plays, I haven't noticed transition being a huge area of issue for OKC in this series. There was again, like talk about scouting report stuff. There was one I remember vividly tonight. Toppin had SGA on a post up. They tried to throw it to him, and Wiggins helped in and stole the pass. And it's just like those little attention to detail, scouting report, understanding what the other team is trying to do type of things. The other funny thing tonight, we talked about all the turnovers Indiana had in game one, but how they didn't concede very many points off turnovers. Tonight, they actually conceded more points off turnovers than in game one, even though they had less total turnovers. And I do think some of that plays into the avalanche that you mentioned that OKC can throw at you.
100%. And to speak to the scouting side, I think the offense deserves a lot of credit here too. So like, Indiana, for the most part in game one, would try to like either next ball screens or send like pretty heavy nail help, things like that. We talked a lot about Siakam sagging off in this game or in game one, right? And being able to kind of blow up plays, with him guarding Lou Dort, with him, at times guarding Casey Wallace, like different things, right? That they were able to do. I felt like the Thunder really played off of that well by setting like little screens onto Siakam to create potentially open threes for guys that Siakam was guarding. I thought that they did a really good job of back cutting and taking advantage Siakam sagging off as well. I thought that they were just really, really well prepared for exactly what Indiana wanted to do to them defensively. So now it will be an interesting adjustment to see how Indiana adjusts back to them. Like you saw some zone in the third quarter, particularly from Indiana in this game. I'm really, really intrigued to see how that goes now, because that's almost going to be the key to how long this series goes. And, if Indiana can get into this thing, is how Oklahoma City is able to consistently take advantage of them offensively as much as anything, because even with Indiana not playing super well tonight, they did get Halliburton going in the fourth quarter. I thought that they were more differentiated in their, plans of attack with Halliburton in the fourth quarter. I felt like they almost were a little bit more willing in the first and second quarters during his minutes to play him off of the ball like they did in the fourth quarter in game one. And he was a little bit too comfortable deferring in that way, probably because it worked in game one in the fourth quarter in such a substantial way. I think he figured out in the fourth, no, I've just kind of got to go now. I can't really, play this game a whole lot where I'm willing to defer off. I probably do have to be the guy. We can do this for stretches, but where I'm playing off a ball, but at the end of the day, I've got to be the guy.
Yeah, I think like that fourth quarter is one that we could look back to tonight's fourth quarter, in terms of that exact thing right there, where I didn't love his game through three quarters, and I did think he deferred too much. And this is something we've talked about consistently throughout the playoffs. It's not a knock on Tyrese Halliburton in terms of his talent or anything like that. I truly think it's a mentality thing. And maybe more than anything, it's an unselfishness to a fault in terms of, oh, they're going to deny the heck out of me. Okay, I trust my teammates to go get buckets. And to your point, sometimes you just have to recognize the moment. You just stole game one. You're on the road again in game two. OKC's bringing their best. Your teammates may get a little frazzled in that situation. They may be a little bit rattled. And the best way to calm them down is for you to take the ball and go get some buckets and them see that confidence in you. And so if we see Tyrese come out really aggressive in game three and really start to extend this series with great play, I do think we could potentially look back to the fourth quarter tonight and be like, hey, I know they were getting blown out, but remember whenever he got it going in that fourth quarter, maybe found a few things, and maybe that was some confidence and momentum that led into his play the rest of the series.
Yeah. The second piece of what happened tonight, more than anything for me, is that Chet and J-Dub got going in a significant way. Both of those guys, I think, were done scoring by like the 8-minute mark or so of the fourth quarter. And, again, it was just a blowout by that point at the end of the day. And we know that no lead is safe with Indiana, but it felt like they had kind of figured out how Indiana's defense was playing. So it was really hard for them to really go on a run like they were, able to do against the Knicks and in game one, certainly, of this series. Chet Holmgren, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 6 of 11 from the field. Was really impactful on defense, had no problem dealing with switches on the perimeter. But more than that, J-Dub, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 of 14 from the field, 8 of 9 from the line. But more than that, defensively, he was just a monster in this game. He was a menace in help. He was a menace in terms of guarding literally everybody on the court. I thought J-Dub was outstanding tonight, even though his game, you look at 19, 5 and 5 for a guy that's ostensibly the number 2 option on the team, and you go, that was fine game, whatever. I thought he was so spectacular in this game, especially in the first half when they really needed it.
Yes, I thought his best stretch, because I think both of those started out a little bit so offensively. And then Dub, I talked about it before the series. I thought his most important minutes, obviously, kind of a dumb moment here, is in the non-SGA minutes, the start of the second quarter, the start of the fourth quarter, however they stagger it, right? And I thought tonight, the start of the second quarter, you saw him really get it going. He had a play where he had a sick secondary defender navigation dribble. So he's attacking with his left. He navigates the secondary defender, kind of push dribbles out in front, and then ended up finishing with his left hand. It was just like, this dude is so talented. And I thought he got it going tonight. And it's one of those things, Sam, when those two have it going, like when there is truly a big three on the offensive end, because we know what this team is defensively, and we probably should spend at least a little bit of time talking about Shea at some point, because I thought he was incredible tonight on both ends of the floor. His defensive disruption, along with his scoring and his creation for teammates. But when this team has those big three offensively, it's just like you can't bet against them. It's so hard to beat them, because you're very rarely going to catch them on a bad defensive night. And if they're scoring from all three of those, along with getting some of the tertiary shot making of a Wiggins or Caruso or whoever, it's just like good luck trying to find a way to knock that team off.
The final thing that we will note before we get to Shea is that Dagnall decided to go to the 2 big lineup tonight.
Yes.
A little bit more consistently.
I like Dagnall's rotation decisions tonight, Sam. I liked some of the changes.
I did too, outside of choosing not to go to the 2 big lineup immediately in the third. I thought that was a bit odd. Like he went, in the final minute and a half, as opposed to like the final, I think it was like a 3 or 4 minute run in the end of the first quarter, not into the second. I think it was just the end of the first, if I remember correctly.
Right. Yeah, first.
In those minutes where Chet and Hartenstein played together tonight, they were a plus 28 offensive rating. So just a really impressive little run for those guys. The other thing was, Hartenstein and Kenrich Williams played a bit in the second or third quarter. In the third quarter together, and those minutes were quite good. That was a 50 net rating in those minutes. And then, the Chet I believe it was like Chet, and I think that if I remember correctly, Kenrich Williams and Chet played a little bit together. They did. Yeah, they played 5 minutes together, and they had a plus 103 net rating. So like they were like just obliterating. So the thing about Kenrich tonight is he gave them really killer minutes in terms of energy and aggression. He had a bunch of offensive rebounds, didn't score at all, but like was really impactful defensively. So like, even if it's, Kenrich is more of a 4, like a true 4 man, as opposed to like a significant big. I felt like going more consistently with the 2 bigs out there in the non-starter minutes, that was what really helped them tonight. I thought, especially when Thomas Bryant was out on the court. The Bryant minutes tonight, I thought, were really, really rough. Even though it doesn't say that, I don't think, for Indiana statistically, it felt like the Thunder just kind of got an easy shot whenever they wanted when Bryant was on the court.
I agree with you, and I look at Kenrich Williams in the same way. I know it's not quite the same idea of 2 big lineup as maybe like a Chet Hartenstein, but I just felt like between how much Chet and iHart played together and then how much those guys played with Williams as well, there was like a conscious decision from Dagnall and his staff to say, we're going to play a little bit bigger. Maybe we over-calculated only being able to have 1 big on the floor and all of that, and it worked out perfectly. And again, we talked about it going into the series. This isn't the same issue that we had with the process of Tom Thibodeau playing Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns together. Now, the thing now is, I don't see Dagnall going back to their original starting lineup. You just blew them out in game 2. And so my guess is we continue to see the Case and Wallace starting lineup. I am with you. I wouldn't mind seeing the 2 big lineup earlier. I do. I at least want to see it for more minutes. I feel like he did, especially in the first quarter. He waited till Indiana had subbed, and then he ran it out there against the backups, and it really, really hurt the backups, as you mentioned with Thomas Bryant. I also want to mention a real quick stretch. Or go ahead, Sam, because I have a stretch during the game. Okay.
The only thing I was going to bring up is that the 2 big lineups tended to come in the minutes where Halliburton was off the court.
Sure. Yes.
As much as anything, which is the critical thing to me.
Yeah. Yep. So I thought the most important stretch of the game, outside of like building the lead, was mid-second quarter. The Oklahoma City Thunder had extended the lead to 15 with 7 minutes. Indiana calls a timeout. OKC comes out. They actually extend it to 21 over 2 minutes. And then, Sam, in the next 2.5 minutes, the Pacers go on a 10-0 run. I think the lead actually got extended to 23. So Indiana cuts it from 23 to 13 with 2.5 minutes to go at half. And OKC calls a timeout. And this was the pivotal point to me. OKC comes out, SGA physical drive finish, Caruso defensive stop, catch and shoot 3-pointer off an SGA assist, and the lead went right back up to what would that be, 18, and then it was 18 going into half. And I think that's what you have to do. What I thought throughout this game was, and what I've learned about this Pacers team, they're going to respond. They were going to punch back at you when you get up by 20, 25, 50, whatever. When they go on their 8-0 run, you better answer right back, and OKC did that tonight in the second quarter.
I totally agree with you. I think that was huge. The other big thing that really stood out to me, even beyond just that little moment, because it was more than a little moment, it was a big moment. There was a point in this game where, I kind of brought up them shutting off the paint and stopping Indiana from getting paint touches, right?
Yep.
There was a point in this game where 17 of Indiana's 27 shot attempts by that point, and this was before they started getting to the line, were all from 3. And it was really, to me, just about the way that they helped and sagged. In the minutes where Halliburton was not on the court, they had no shot to score. It felt like to me. I don't know what the numbers said yet. I'm going to try and find them as we continue to go. But I would imagine that Indiana's offensive rating just like absolutely like dove into like the 70s or something when Halliburton was not on the court. It felt like it was an absolute slog for them, especially at the beginning of the second quarter, to even like really get any sort of offense for those first 4 minutes. And it's hard. It's just really, really hard when, you have this smothering defense that is so capable of getting, turnovers and live ball turnovers, but also is just able to, at the same time, to stop you from getting paint touches as well. Speaking of the live ball turnovers tonight, it did just feel like that was a thing that Indiana struggled with again. Maybe even more so than in game 1, honestly. A lot of their turnovers in game 1, even though they happened a ton, were not live ball turnovers. It felt like in this game, to me, both the live ball turnovers from Indiana were a problem, but also I think that because Indiana got so aggressive at stopping them from getting to the paint, when they got there, the Pacers really tried to finish and score, and it threw off kind of their court balance a little bit. I felt like they often had like three guys below the foul line in terms of like whenever they took their shot, which meant that if you missed the shot, you still created an opportunity for an odd man break for Oklahoma City. And again, odd man breaks aren't necessarily always going to lead to like fast break points, right? It's not always about like how many points you get out on the break. Like, if you look at the numbers, they say fast break points 9-4 in this game in favor of Indiana. That's just like not a lot of what's happening, but you get cross matches, you get different situations. Like there was one where I believe it was like Shea gets Matherin instead of Neesmith on like a cross match and then just drills him for like a mid-range pull-up, right? And it wasn't even like Matherin played poor defense by his standards. It's just a totally different matchup at the end of the day, and one that Shea looked pretty comfortable with all night to me. So I'm very, very interested to see how Indiana kind of adjusts to how the Thunder eventually figured out how to kind of dominate them on the offensive end of the court.
Couple just fun stats here. This was from the NBA's account. OKC is 17-2 following a loss this season and 5-0 in the playoffs.
Huh.
And then from good friend of the podcast and just in general, Andrew Slecht, he had a tweet at the end of the game, and then helps when you make 61% of your layups and not 46% of them like Oklahoma City did in game one, something we talked about with their 2-point percentage after game one. And I also think this was Shea's 13th 30-point game in this playoff run so far, which is just crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah, like we should probably talk a little bit more about Shea. We have only talked about him briefly here and alluded to him. He was unstoppable tonight. There was nothing that Indiana could do. I will note that I thought Oklahoma City did a really good job of differentiating the way that they got him into their actions and ball screens. Like when Hartenstein was on the court, I felt like their screen level was really high because they really trust that Hartenstein is going to be able to like make contact on those screens and create that initial advantage for Shea, and that he's going to be able to attack and get downhill. I thought his handle was and balance tonight was like unbelievable, getting into those mid-range spots and getting into those like little tight contested areas while being able to find different ways to finish at the rim, dealing with the contact, dealing with everything that comes with it. Yeah, I thought Shea was just masterful tonight. And you mentioned the defense as well. I mean, his timing on defense was spectacular tonight. He was so good. He had one play against Siakam, even in the first quarter, where he got hit on a cross match on the post. Like I think he got switched on to Siakam, and he pulled the chair on Siakam, and it resulted in a turnover. And it was beautiful. And then he had the beautiful strip on Halliburton at one point. It was a perfect two-way game, I thought, tonight for Tyrese Halliburton.
I can't say
anything
else.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I'm sorry.
Very first note for Shea for me, gets switched on Siakam, pulls the chair, forces a turnover. I felt like they started him off the ball multiple possessions, especially early in the game, and I thought it paid off. I know he got a catch and shoot 3-point attempt. There was another one. It created something for a teammate. I don't remember exactly what happened now. I didn't write the note out specifically, but and then he was just he was unstoppable. And his passing, his creation for his teammates was really impressive. To me tonight, he had 8 assists tonight. In that series against the Wolves, he averaged 8 assists per game in that series. He only had 3 in game 1, but then comes back with 8 tonight. The steals. He also had a block, a really nice possession where he stayed in front and got a block. So I thought he was absolutely incredible. Looked all the part of an MVP player. And I will say, this is like what I expected from OKC tonight. I would have been disappointed for any other performance from this team that has been incredible all year long, has an MVP, a historical defense, at least in the context of the last 15, 20 years, like however you want to, do that. And after the heartbreaker of game 1 and probably the shell shock of that, I expected nothing less than them to come out and really put together a game. And at the end of the day, Indiana still did what they needed to do in terms of a 2-game sample, which was still one. And now you get a chance to go home and keep home court and see if you can do that. And that's not going to be easy, right? But they should still take some confidence that they found a way to get one. But man, SGA with a hell of a response tonight. I thought he was incredible playing both ends of the floor.
Yeah, a couple of things here just on Dagnall as well, because, we had some real questions about Dagnall in game one that we didn't love. I thought he pulled all the right levers tonight.
Agreed.
From his rotations and the
Yes.
timing on his rotations. Particularly the thing that I liked a lot was Hartenstein coming in at right around the 6:40 mark of the first quarter. I believe he came in at like the 7-minute mark of the third quarter as well. So he brought Hartenstein earlier and then brought Chet back earlier in both of the halves, which was really interesting to me in the way that he kind of created that advantage against Thomas Bryant, particularly in those minutes. I thought that was really, really sharp from Dagnall tonight. Again, mentioned the way that they played off of Siakam's heavy help, the way that they played off of Indiana's kind of ball screen coverages, with the way that they were like, next thing, bring super heavy nail help. I thought that Dagnall was really, really terrific tonight in terms of prepping them for exactly what Indiana was doing in game one and playing off of that in a really advantageous, impressive manner.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he had a really good game tonight in terms, especially the rotations. Like, I thought the rotations were really good. And the other thing is, like, we talk about scouting report defense and stuff like that. We got to give credit to Dagnall and his staff for those type of things as well, making sure they know these actions that are coming and what to emphasize in terms of transition defense and where the help's going to come. And, I haven't noticed a whole lot of they get the great post mismatch. The biggest one we talked about was Siakam on Case and Wallace in game one. I don't remember as many of those tonight, whether Indiana didn't try to attack that or OKC was able to avoid getting that matchup. And so I thought it was a really good performance, starting with Dagnall, his decisions, his rotations, again, leaning into Aaron Wiggins. We didn't see AJ Mitchell, like we say, no shot at AJ Mitchell. I think we both think AJ Mitchell had a really good rookie season. But we didn't see those random minutes. Isaiah Joe played like 4 and that was it. The 2 big lineup stuff that we've already discussed. I thought it was a really nice game too for him.
Yeah, it felt like to me, as soon as Isaiah Joe came in, they were looking to attack him with Halliburton like every time. That was the only portion of the first half where I felt like Halliburton really looked aggressive, actually, was when Isaiah Joe was in the game. They were just trying to switch Joe onto Halliburton and just go to work. So I thought that was smart to kind of take him out and run those minutes with Wiggins a little bit more consistently.
And I will say, like, they do continue to attack Halliburton on the defensive end. Like, Dagnall has been consistent with the first action tonight. It was Case and Wallace attacking him off the bounce. They brought him into a ball screen with SGA. SGA attacks him. They hit him with a short roll. Like, they are just, it's not going to change. And I appreciate that from him as well. Like, you lose game one, and sometimes it's easy to overreact. Like, oh my gosh, is our ideas flawed here? Whatever. And it's like, no, we came in, we believed that attacking Halliburton was the right play. They've continued to do it. You look at game one as like, hey, we let the pedal off the gas or whatever. But our process in general, minus the 2 big lineup stuff, has been pretty good in terms of our schematics. And they continue to lean into it in game 2. And I think it continues to pay off.
Yeah, really early in the first quarter, you had, Shea Case and guard to guard screen, gave Shea a ton of space just for an easy bucket. And then the next possession, they came down with a J-Dub Case and guard to guard screen involving Halliburton. And again, like the way that they were guarding these is, you're going to like next or bring heavy nail help, whatever you want to call it. In the way that Oklahoma City was spacing tonight, they had Chet on the wing. And then that brought Turner as the guy at the nail who was helping and being the significant influence there. It created this really difficult 1-on-2 situation on the back end at that point after J-Dub gets past that initial level of the defense. And it's just really hard to be able to deal with that. Like, I think it was Nembhard had to guard 1-on-2, and Nembhard's a really great defender, but I mean, when he has to cover ground on the backside as the low man, it's a little bit trickier. So I thought that Oklahoma City was also like a little bit more intentional with their spacing tonight as well in the way that they went about things. And that's why they end up with so many open threes, I felt like, from some of their role players particularly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the other nice thing I like about the two big lineup is it changes some of that stuff as well. Because there we saw it tonight where then all of a sudden was it Chet to iHeart or I think it was iHeart to Chet. Anyway, one of them short rolled and then threw the lob in the dunker spot. Well, if you're Indiana, you've been playing all game without somebody in the dunker spot or in general, somebody not in the dunker spot. They're just spacing.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden now there's this two big lineup. And you're like, shit, now there's a guy in the dunker spot. I got to rotate down there as opposed to playing 2-on-1 out at the perimeter. Just the versatility, the variety of things they can throw at your defense and make you think and then change your thinking is really, really cool.
Yeah, totally agree. Before we talk about like what next in this series, let's shout out our folks over at Manscaped. Father's Day is just around the corner, and let's be honest, Dad does not need another coffee mug or a pair of socks. It's time to give him something he'll actually use. Meet the Chairman Pro from Manscaped, the perfect Father's Day gift for the dad who deserves to look and feel his best. This isn't just any razor. The Chairman Pro is a high-tech, dad-approved grooming upgrade. It's an electric face shaver that can tackle up to 5 days of growth and features 2 interchangeable blade heads. Whether he's cleaning up for golf dinner or just another nap on the recliner, make sure he does it with style. The Chairman Pro is perfect for the dad who taught you how to shave and now needs a reminder how it's really done. Have him join the over 12 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Do you know what makes Manscaped so great? They have these 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. The skin-safe 4-blade foil is for that super close shave, and then the skin-safe stubble trimmer is for that sophisticated 5 o'clock shadow look. Both are designed to help reduce razor burn and irritation, so skin feels smooth and comfortable after every shave. It's also waterproof, so it can be used in the shower or rinsed under the sink after use, making cleanup a breeze. But most importantly, it's going to come with a 2-year warranty on all powered devices, giving you peace of mind with every use. Get your dad a Father's Day gift he'll actually use and get the Chairman Pro for 15% off with the code GAMETHEORY at manscaped.com. That's 15% off your entire order with code GAMETHEORY at manscaped.com. Or if you need it today, you can go find a Manscaped at a store near you. Okay, Bryce, let's talk about where this series goes. I still feel pretty good about Oklahoma City. We felt pretty good about Oklahoma City after game 1. It just felt like the offense kind of cratered in such a substantial way. I still feel pretty good about where Oklahoma City is here, going back to Indiana 1-1. I feel like them figuring out the paint touches issue, particularly. The guy who really I felt like had success getting paint touches tonight for Indiana actually ended up being Pascal Siakam in minutes. Like, he was able to drive and be able to get to the rim against whoever was guarding him. But it's hard to run your entire offense through Siakam, I feel like, too, at times, just given that he's like an okay passer. He's not a great passer. And with the way that Oklahoma City, is able to swarm on you, it's a little bit too easy for me at times. It feels like to force turnovers and to make him become a difficult, maybe not as fluid of an offensive creator as what you would like to see against this defense.
Yeah, I think I still feel pretty comfortable with where we're at. This defense has been solid in general throughout 2 games. Again, we all know the comeback and all of that, but outside of that, both first halves have just been master classes from the Thunder, and they've done it in different ways. Like, that's the other thing. We talked about the turnovers and forcing turnovers and not committing turnovers aspect for both of these teams and how good both teams were coming into the finals. In game 1, we saw OKC just turn them over and over and over. And then here in game 2, they didn't even have to do it. Like, there was some of that. There was disruption. Like, don't get me wrong, but they can just straight up guard you. And so I think I could see us going back to OKC 2-2. I want to give Indiana that much credit because they've been here, they've gotten here, they respond. to all of these things, I don't think we see a 3-1 going back to OKC. I think at most it's 2-2, but I didn't waver a ton after game one. OKC was still my pick, but when Indiana steals a game like they did, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, if they win one at home, now it's 2-2. OKC wins at home 3-2. Well, we're at least going to game 6. You know what I mean? Like now that loss of game 1 for OKC may extend this out to it does end up being a game 7, because if OKC can't close it out in 6 on the road. So I'm a little more open to that than just like staying, strong and pat to my OKC in 5 now.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. The thing I will say is that, you just look through what game 3 has been for Oklahoma City in these playoffs, bizarrely. Game 3 was the weird game where like Ja Morant went off and they were up like 20 in the first half in the Grizzlies series.
Yeah.
Before he got hurt. Yeah. And then they came back and won.
They had their massive comeback. Yep.
Denver, they lost game 3 by 10. And then the Timberwolves game 3 was the one that they lost 41, the blowout. Yeah, 42. You're dead on. So,
wow.
I mean, like they haven't had a great game 3 in the playoffs yet, which is really interesting to me on some level. I don't know. It's weird. And I think that like, by the way, like I think Indiana has also like struggled in game 3s in the playoffs too. And the both of these teams have just been amazing in every other game, but like it's so bizarre.
Yeah, that's interesting because like I said, if they wouldn't have lost the game 1, I would feel really confident, like obviously if they're going up 2-0, it's like, okay, maybe they, give away game 3, but it's still playing out. So Jesus,
Indiana in game 3s, by the way. Yeah.
I was going to say, I just pulled it up. You go ahead.
Yeah. So at the Bucks, they lose by 16. At home against the Cavs, they lose by 22. And
both
then
series,
at home against
only games they lost in those series, for just to remind people, those were both 5-game series.
Yeah. And then game 3 against the Knicks, they lose by 6 at home as well. And that was a game that like the Knicks just had to have, again, like they had started both of these series beforehand up 2-0, against the Bucks, crazy comeback at the end of that one game. And then, probably felt like the Bucks needed to get that one. The Cavs, really, really tight game 2, desperately need game 3. They come back and get it. The Knicks have the crazy loss in game 1, lose a tight one in game 2. Knicks, come back, get one in game 3 to just kind of stem the tide. There isn't that like level of urgency in game 3 for Oklahoma City in the way it was for the previous 3 teams for Indiana. But I wonder if this is just a battle of bad game 3s here in this series, which is going to be fun.
Hopefully we get a good game. So I don't want to like oversimplify this, but just looking here at the raw stats, those 3 game 3s, Sam, are the 3 worst team 3-point percentage games for the Pacers in these playoffs. They shot 30% in the game 3 loss to the Cavs. They shot 32% from 3 in the game 3 loss to the Bucks, and they shot 20%. I should have started with that one. I apologize. 20% in the game 3 loss to the Knicks. Those were their 3 worst team 3-point shooting performances of these playoffs. And for what it's worth, the game 5 loss to the Knicks, 33% as well. Their 4th worst 3-point shooting percentage. I was trying to see if there was any other stats that just jumped out in terms of that, but that one immediately jumped out in terms of the 3-point shooting as interesting. So
really, really interesting to watch here. I think really, really interesting. Game 3 forthcoming. That is on Wednesday, I believe, right? Game 3.
Yep. We still, I think game 3 to game 4 is the only time we only get one day off. All the other games have 2 days in between. Other than I believe we go Wednesday, Friday for 3 and 4, and then we'll skip over the weekend actually.
Yeah, which is also weird. The way they've scheduled these finals is very strange to me.
Well, I assumed it was to get game 7 on Sunday. Yeah, because we go Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday. So however they had to do it, one time they had to only have a 1 game off, so that way they can make sure we got a game 7 on a Sunday. But
Interesting. Okay. Before we move on, we do just want to note a couple of random news and notes things. Really, just one is probably the only thing that I feel the need to talk about. So
Sure.
Zach Edey
Yeah.
sprained his ankle, I guess in a workout that he did recently,
Yeah.
and the Grizzlies are opting for him, and he is opting. Obviously, he has control over his own body for a surgery just to like repair some ankle ligaments and make it so that he's going to be good and, I think steady long term in his career. But the result of this is going to be that he's going to miss the first part of next season, it feels like. And look, like, I think that I hadn't quite done the math on how many times he'd hurt. I believe it's his right ankle. I'll confirm that while we're talking, but
Left. The Yahoo Sports headline says left. Just
okay, left ankle then. Yeah. I think I hadn't done the math on how often he'd hurt it because he did like have like a minor sprain at Summer League after 1 game or something like that. And then he had one earlier this year. And then he had this one again. I think there might have even been like one other one in there. So like it's just like kind of an accumulative effect more than anything. And being as big as he is, like it's just hard. Like you want those guys to have as much stability on those ankles and feet as is humanly possible. So I like this long term for Zach Edey's future. I think it's really, really great that they're doing this and just getting this out of the way. It is a bummer though that he's going to miss, the first part of the season because this is a team that does kind of desperately need a center to be able to come in and play minutes because Brandon Clark also, will be coming off of his serious injury as well.
So that's what I was gonna say. I was looking up Clark and like what the timeline of all of that was, and so his was a PCL sprain, I believe, in his knee. There was a recovery timeline, and then I don't know, he got an injection instead of surgery or something like that. It looks like. Just reading about it here, but it looks like he should be ready for 25, 26, but it still makes you a little bit nervous, right? Like he's coming off and going into an offseason where he didn't finish the season healthy in what it sounds like. And now your other big man is, for a fact, isn't starting the season healthy, and we don't know when he will be ready to go. And I mean, the nice thing for Memphis is, like, worst case is now you go to Jay Huff, who I still like. I like Jay Huff. I mean, I'm not saying you feel great if Jay Huff's your starting center on opening night, but that's still a better situation than a lot of teams would be in if they had both of their first 2 bigs out. But we always talk about this in the West and how competitive it is, and Zach Edey will be a huge part of their success, right off the jump next year. You have this new coach, I know he's been there, but it will be his first offseason and training camp and all of that with this team, with this new coach. And, Edey not being there for it, it's less than ideal, right? Like every year you want that excitement of your new team. Everybody's healthy. You're ready to go. And I think that more than anything, Sam, Edey individually missing the offseason of development. I can't imagine there's a more important offseason for a player than from year 1 to year 2, right? Like going into your rookie year, your head is spinning and it's like you're just trying to figure stuff out. After year 1, you've gone through it all, you've experienced it, you have a vibe for it. And I assume like that offseason, you can get a lot of stuff done. And unfortunately, that's going to be taken from him.
Yeah, no, that's dead on. The fact that is taken from him is actually a really big deal. So look, we'll see what Memphis does in the offseason here. They have their full mid-level as well to be able to play with, assuming that they use their cap space to renegotiate and extend Jaren up, which would make sense to me. So we've done that offseason preview. I guess it would slightly change now. I don't know that they'll go out and sign a big or anything, given that they still do have Zach Edey on this rookie scale deal long term. And that's a huge value add if he can be a starting center. But I do wonder if maybe they bring in like another depth option that maybe we weren't anticipating, just to eat up minutes early in the season, potentially in a way that maybe we weren't thinking prior to this injury.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like it could change depending on, whenever it says we'll miss start of 25-26 season. It's just like that could mean a variety of things, right? And so, we have a month, not even a month, less than a month now, 3 weeks until free agency really gets going and some of these decisions start to be made. You just wonder how much information will they have in terms of what that timeline really looks like? How much will they feel like they can work him back in? How healthy is Clark, etc.? And yeah, it could change some of their decision making where they're now on the market for a big man for this upcoming season.
Just a couple of questions here from the folks watching live over on YouTube, which, by the way, we go live on YouTube after all of these games that you're listening to on the podcast feed. If you're listening there, come hang out. Come watch us live. You'll get to ask questions. And if you have questions, you'll get them answered. Dirty Dancer asks, do you think Miles Turner will take a haircut to keep Indy under the second apron? I'm assuming this means on his contract that he will assuredly be negotiating this summer. I mean, look, like, I don't know if he's going to take a haircut. I mean, just looking at where they are financially, they have $167 million. We haven't done their offseason preview yet. So, like, please don't, take this as gospel necessarily, because I'm like really trying to do math on the fly here. They've 167 locked in for 10 guys right now. That is like basically their rotation, and Tony Bradley is the only free agent, I believe, right now. Cap holds, like, Thomas Bryant is also a free agent, as is Isaiah Jackson is a restricted free agent. I'd forgotten about that. So assuming they want to keep Isaiah Jackson, that's probably like, 5 or 6 million additionally that you can cut off. First round pick is number 23. I assume they'll use number 23. Cap hold there would be what, like 3 or so million at number 23, 3.2 million at 23. So, they have like 30 million to play with ish until the second apron, right? I don't know. 30 million feels about right to me, for Miles Turner, somewhere in that ballpark.
I think it's going to be close though, right? Because
yeah,
I
definitely.
think you're right about the right number. I just went over to Spot Track and looked where they have them, and their allocations are about the same number you had. That had them at 39 million in second apron space. But then, like you said, you got to figure in the draft pick. That's not including any Isaiah Jackson, or, you got to go get another center of some sort. And you just have to fill out the roster, right? You have to have, the players on the roster that are going to take up, even if it's minimums, a couple million here, a couple million there. Seems like maybe they could sneak in under it.
Well, the big thing for me is, and we'll talk about this when we do their offseason preview whenever the finals are over, but like, I would guess that if they really felt like they needed to get under, make sure that they're under the second apron and give themselves plenty of leeway if they wanted to. Like, Ben Mathurin is extension eligible this summer and makes $9 million next season. Jarris Walker is slated to make $6.5 million next season. If you wanted to move one of those guys, you very easily could, and you'd probably get some semi-real value back in return for both of them. So they have a lot of ways. I would imagine they won't be a second apron team next year, but I would bet that they are a tax team and that they are in the first apron at the very least.
Yeah, so first apron, this says they're 27 million from there, and then tax, it says 20. So yeah, I mean, bringing Turner back is definitely going to put him above those two.
Yeah. From John Zemiskis, is KD to Minnesota realistic, and how do you project Nicolas Avdilas? Okay, so shout out John for the super chat first and foremost. Second, is KD to Minnesota realistic? Sure. Like, there are ways that deal can get done. It's a little bit tricky because both of those teams are in the apron, and, financially it just gets difficult to make that happen whenever both teams are in the apron. You'd almost certainly have to involve a third team. And then I think you'd almost certainly have to involve a third team. And then, I mean, like, is it easier if Julius Randle opts in and takes the 31, and then you move like Mike Conley or something in the deal, right? Like,
How do
does
they?
that get you there math wise?
I'd say what's KD at 50 something, right?
Yeah, Katie's at 54. The deal I just created is only at like 40 million. Like, it might need to be like Julius and like Jaden McDaniels or something. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's almost right there. That's a little more, but yeah,
it's a little more, and they can't take back more than what they take in. So like,
it almost has to be right because like then it starts to be just like too many players. Julius, Dante, and Conley get you to 52 or 3, but
so
I
what,
mean
30.9? What's 120 of 30.9? It would be like, let's call it 36.9. You could almost like sign and trade Randall before he gets eligible for base year compensation by going on a 20% raise or more. But no, the Suns can't take back a player in a sign and trade because they're over the second apron. So that doesn't even work. So there are ways to construct a deal. I feel positive of that. But like thinking through it on the fly is somewhat difficult. I mean, like even Jaden, Dante, and Conley doesn't work. That's still like 7 million away from making it work financially. So I think it's going to be really hard. You'd have to involve a third team almost certainly that'd be getting some sort of value back. And the Suns can't aggregate players either, which makes it tricky. I think it's going to be easier to deal KD to a team that has some like flexibility with the cap, like the Clippers or the Spurs, than it is to Minnesota. But it's not impossible, I don't think. Like I think you could, like certainly Minnesota would have assets if they wanted KD to be able to do it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the aprons and all of that definitely make this stuff tougher.
Yeah. And then like Avdilas, I'm just kind of assuming he's going to be in college basketball next year. I like the player. I think he's really interesting. I think he's super skilled, knows how to play. But I mean, like, he's either going to be like a second rounder as like a stash player somewhere, or he's going to be in college next year. I would rather just withdraw and go to college next year if I was him.
Yeah, I'm really interested. For me, I like him as a player. Size looks legit. The wingspan, you can see the talent. You mentioned the skill level, but I did mention in my notes when I watched, he looks like a year away to me. Can do a variety of things. I thought the defense was interesting. Would love to get a year of college evaluation on it.
Yeah. I mean, any other questions here that are interesting? Let's see. Anyone else? There was one other one that I saw that I was kind of interested in, and we can close on this, given that, you know, most of this was about the finals, right? So, what would it take for you guys to believe the Pacers have a real shot of winning this series?
What would it take? So what would I have to see? Tyrese. Like I feel like I've stayed pretty steadfast in this in terms of I want to see Tyrese be like I think he almost has to outplay Shea for them to win this thing. And so I mean I think they have a shot, but and I even whenever I picked it in 5, I said that it would be a competitive 5, but I guess for me to walk away, I think what I would have wanted to see tonight, Ron, was Tyrese with just a masterclass performance from the tip to the end. Not just a game winner, like we know he can do that, but a like, hey, this Oklahoma City defense is incredible. I still got it figured out. And it doesn't mean you have to go for 50, but a 28 and 13 performance or something like that, where I'm just like, he has this defense a little bit figured out. He looks comfortable, and I feel comfortable that he's just going to continue to play that way the entire series. And quite honestly, we kind of got the opposite of that until the fourth quarter.
So I think that my answer to this is I think they probably would have to go up 3-1. And the route to that is Halliburton being super aggressive, first and foremost. Them finding defensive answers beyond what we saw in game one, because now the Thunder have adjusted to that already, as we just discussed in the first portion of this video. I'm trying to think like what else, like what are the offensive adjustments that they could make realistically to like really make this work. I think that you have to do a lot of what you did in the fourth quarter with Halliburton, I'm sorry, where he is getting really differentiated actions like dribble handoff rejects or double drags that create confusion with Oklahoma City, or, you know, empty side ball screens where he's getting a chance to like attack a little bit more in space, right? Like then can create corner threes off of those empty side actions for his team. Like you would need to come up with like a really strong game plan that I really believe in. And I loved what they did in the second half of game one. But realistically, I mean, look, I know they dropped like 60 or whatever in the second half tonight, but I didn't really think that that was wildly impressive offensively. Like the third quarter was a lot of parade to the foul line stuff on both ends. Like it was Oklahoma City, both, and Oklahoma City and Indiana, I'm sorry, were both paraded to the foul line in the third quarter. And then in the fourth, it was, you know, just they never really got it going until Oklahoma City started to take some guys out and took their foot off the gas a little bit.
So I would say the other two things is where I could take confidence, because so I don't just harp on the Halliburton thing, is if Indiana's pace was causing Oklahoma City problems. And that's one reason why I really believed in Oklahoma City, Sam, is because I did think Oklahoma City would be able to be locked in 95% of the time and have the matchup versatility to not have that just crush them with Indiana's pace. And I've yet to watch a game so far in this series where I'm like, the pace of Indiana is just destroying Oklahoma City or causing crazy cross-match problems. Like the one cross-match problem we've talked about is Kaysen on Siakam, and that was just in the half court, just forcing a switch. And then the other thing is if Nembhard or Nesmith or whoever I felt like was having success at least making SGA's life tough, or I didn't feel like SGA was comfortable in some sort of way getting to his spots. And that has just not been the case. SGA scored 36 per game on 49, 40, 90 so far in this series. And so that would be a couple non-Halliburton things that could make me feel better about the Pacers' chances. And I have yet to see either of those two things in two games.
I think I agree. Okay. Off-season preview series. Still going strong.
I was about to shout, like, I'm calling out the competition, Sam. Like, we got the Pistons one just under 10K. It might be at 10K by the time we wake up Monday morning. The Blazers, shout out the Blazers fans. We gave you 53 minutes, is a little over 9K. We have a bunch, like, I don't think any of them have under like 4,000. This is just YouTube numbers, by the way. And I'm not trying to like take victory laps or whatever. I just think it's fun. Houston Rockets fans, I'm expecting big things. We gave you guys over an hour of Houston Rockets offseason preview. So whoever you're a fan of, check it out. And there's been a lot of cross fan where I've got, like, somebody texted me the other day, like, yeah, I was watching your Orlando one, and they were like a Cavs fan or something like that, or they were watching the Heat one. I'm like, okay, this is really cool that you're watching other teams' offseason previews.
We appreciate you guys immensely for tuning into those. They've been so fun to record. The next group that's coming on those, I believe, is, let's see, we've done the Warriors. I think the Raptors are coming, the Pelicans are coming, the Hawks are coming, and Dallas are. Those are the next four. Yeah. And then I think after that will be like the Hornets, the Jazz, and the Wizards, if I remember correctly. So we've got like the next 7 like kind of queued up in the schedule. And then after that, I think we only have like 5 or 6 left at that point. So
including
it'll be like
the 2 finals teams, and
yeah,
I think we had the Bucks left, kind of making sure nothing crazy happens with some of these. We had to re-record the Knicks because we recorded that one before Tibbs got fired. So
we do. Yeah, we have to re-record the next one. The Bucks, like you said, the Spurs are later because we
Yeah.
want to kind of see where some of the trade stuff is going to settle because they have just a substantial amount of assets moving forward. The Nets will be coming at some point soon as well, in addition to the two teams that are currently in the finals. That's what we got, though. That's what's forthcoming on the show. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, the Motor City Hoops Substack. If you're interested in second round prospects, I have like 6 or 7 video breakdowns over there. A little bit of a Pistons twist, but you'll get the idea. I believe Drake Powell is dropping tomorrow, I think, and then Tyrese Proctor on Tuesday. And then I'm also going to start doing some on free agent players. And again, we'll have a little bit of a Pistons twist, but if your team might be in the market for Jake LaRavia or Naz Reid or Nikhil Alexander-Walker, I'm going to be doing some of that stuff. So check out the Substack and you'll see some of those. The Pistons Pulse podcast, otherwise Game Theory podcast right here with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I believe the draft guide is coming this week, and I think it's early this week.
It's awesome. I got a sneak preview,
again,
guys. It is awesome.
I don't want to promise a date because I am concerned to promise a date. But we're pretty far along on the back end. Shout out to all of the amazing editors over at The Athletic, all of our amazing design team. I'm sure I'll shout them out again whenever this thing actually goes live, but the current thought is early this week. We will see where that goes. Okay. The other thing I will note on the draft guide real quick, just to give you guys like a preview, I do not have like a lot of the international guys ranked. I am waiting to see how many of them decide to not go to college is the thing. Like I will tell you, I do not have Abdullah ranked. I do not have Ben Henschel ranked. The reason is that it just makes way more sense for them to drop out of the draft right now than it does to go to college. If they decide to stay in, we will update and we will do profiles for guys like that end up deciding to stay in. Michael Ruzic. Please don't make me watch more Ruzic than I have already, because he's just very clearly not ready for this yet. But go to The Athletic, subscribe there. We have so much fun doing that every single year. As much as I complain about it while it's happening, it is like a labor of love for me that is always enjoyable. Hit the subscribe button in the podcast feed. Hit the subscribe button over on YouTube, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. We appreciate you guys immensely for coming and hanging out and listening to all of these things. Go to The Athletic, go subscribe to these things. I believe we're at like 43,000 subscribers now, which is nuts over on YouTube. We appreciate you guys immensely for coming to hang out. That's where we're at, though. Until next time, we'll talk soon.